Here's something interesting that came up in the research. Time-restricted eating appears to shift circadian rhythms. The participants' body clocks changed in response to the new eating schedule. Now, the question we need to ask is whether this circadian shift is beneficial, harmful, or neutral. And the honest answer is, we don't really know yet. Your circadian rhythm is your body's internal 24-hour clock, controlled by a master pacemaker in your brain and peripheral clocks in nearly every organ. These clocks regulate hormone secretion, body temperature, alertness, metabolic enzyme activity, and countless other physiological processes. They're synchronized by zeitgebers, time givers, the most powerful of which is light exposure, but food timing is also a significant zeitgeber. When you change your eating schedule, you're sending new timing signals to your peripheral clocks, particularly in your liver, pancreas, and gut. These organs start to anticipate food at new times, adjusting their enzyme secretion and metabolic activity accordingly. This can shift the phase of peripheral clocks relative to the master clock in your brain, which is primarily set by light exposure. In the study, this circadian shift presumably occurred because participants stopped eating breakfast and extended their evening eating. Their digestive organs no longer received morning food signals and instead got stronger evening signals. Over time, this could shift the phase of peripheral metabolic rhythms later in the day. Is this problematic? That depends on the context. If the shift brings your peripheral clocks into better alignment with your natural chronotype and your light exposure schedule, it might be beneficial. If it creates misalignment between different clock systems or conflicts with external demands like work schedules, it could be harmful. Research on shift workers gives us insight into what happens with severe circadian disruption. Shift workers, whose eating and sleeping schedules are forced out of alignment with natural light-dark cycles, have elevated rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers. This is strong evidence that circadian misalignment has serious long-term health consequences, but the circadian shift from intermittent fasting is probably much more subtle than what shift workers experience. You're not reversing your sleep-wake cycle or eating breakfast at midnight. You're making a moderate adjustment to meal timing. The health consequences of this moderate shift are unclear. There might even be therapeutic applications for circadian manipulation through meal timing. People with jet lag might use strategic eating times to help reset their clocks faster. People with delayed sleep phase syndrome, who naturally want to sleep and wake late, might benefit from later eating windows that align with their chronotype rather than fighting against it. Some research suggests that consistent meal timing, regardless of the absolute clock time, might be more important than eating at optimal times. Your body adapts to predictable schedules. It's the irregularity and unpredictability that seems most harmful. If you consistently eat from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. every day, your body will adapt and optimize around that schedule. But if your eating times are chaotic, constantly shifting, that perpetual circadian desynchronization might be the real problem. The question of whether we should deliberately manipulate circadian timing through diet is open. There's an argument that we should align eating with natural circadian biology, eating predominantly during daylight hours when digestive and metabolic functions are optimized. But there's also an argument for individualizing eating times based on personal chronotypes, work schedules, and social contexts. Rigid adherence to theoretical optimal timing might be less important than consistency and individual comfort. What concerns me is that most people starting intermittent fasting aren't thinking about circadian effects at all. They're focused on weight loss or metabolic benefits, not realizing they're also conducting an unintentional circadian experiment on themselves. Some might experience improved sleep and energy if their new eating schedule happens to align better with their natural rhythms. Others might experience the opposite if they're creating new misalignments. The future of this research should involve more sophisticated circadian monitoring. We need studies measuring core body temperature rhythms, dim light melatonin onset, cortisol awakening response, and other objective circadian markers. We need to understand how different eating windows affect circadian alignment in people with different chronotypes. And we need long-term data on whether circadian shifts induced by intermittent fasting have health consequences, positive or negative, over years rather than weeks.